We continue in Chapter 7 here, this time working on built-in functions. And within built-in functions, we're working with truncating and rounding. Once again, built-in functions are functions that are existing in R and not ones that you would write yourself. In Chapter 8, we'll move on to user-written functions, and those are functions that you'll write for specific tasks that you want done. Starting with truncating and rounding, I'm going to begin by setting a vector x. First element of x will be 777.777, and the next element of the vector will be 8.8. So when you take a look at x, there it is. First thing I'd like to introduce is the floor function. And what the floor function does is this will take a value like 3.7 and it will simply drop it to the next lowest integer. So for example, if we say floor of the vector x, it will take 777.777 down to the next lowest integer, and the same is true of 8.8. Keep in mind that floor, when you hit a negative number, like say negative 1.5, it'll always move to the left. That is, that's going to go down to negative 2. So if you just think of a number line, if you're between two integers, it will move to the left to the next lowest integer. If you were to say, for example, floor of 3, that will return exactly 3. There is another function that's known as ceiling, and the ceiling function does the opposite. What it does is if you say ceiling of 3.7, it will move you to the right to the next integer on the number line. So for example, ceiling of x will move the first value of x to 778 and the next value of x to 9. There's another function called trunc, and this is for truncate. And if you truncate the values of x, all it's going to do is erase whatever is to the right of the decimal point. So for example, if you say, I want to truncate negative 1.5, what it'll do is it will simply erase what's to the right of the decimal point and give you negative 1. So that will not always do the same thing that floor does. It will just erase what's to the right of the decimal point. There's another one called round. And let me go ahead. I'm going to go up here to the broom and clear this out. We'll start afresh. There's x. If you want to round the values of x, this will round them. So 777.777 gets rounded up to 778, and 8.8 also gets rounded up to 9. You can also ask R to round some numbers to one digit. And now the 777.777 gets rounded to one digit to 777.8. So that's saying to one digit to the right of the decimal point. And again, the 8.8 gets rounded to exactly 8.8. You could also say round these to 2 digits. And you get that. You could also say round them to negative 2 digits. That won't be immediately clear what that is, but that's going to take it in the other direction and say round these numbers to the nearest 100. And when you do that, the 777.777 gets rounded to 800, and the 8.8, when it's rounded to the nearest 100, gets rounded to 0. The last of these functions is the signif function. And if I want to display these values to 4 significant digits, it will do so. And that ends truncation and rounding. In the next section, we'll be looking at sorting, ordering, and ranking.